Hollywood once glittered with red carpets and stars celebrated as flawless icons. But Paul Newman once exposed a truth that stunned the industry. Behind the Oscars and smiles lurked a darkness far more terrifying than any villain on screen. He spoke of starlet mothers who turned their children into victims, powerful actors who lured underage girls into locked rooms, and giants who threw punches on set. Among them, one name sent the sharpest chill: Errol Flynn, the dashing Robin Hood himself. In the 1930s, millions adored him for his charm and adventure, but whispers trailed him across Hollywood. In 1942, Flynn stood trial in Los Angeles for charges involving two underage girls. The Los Angeles Examiner splashed it across headlines: Robin Hood in the dock. Crowds packed the courtroom. Prosecutors described all-night parties in Flynn's Hollywood Hills home, filled with smoke, music, and girls far too young. In the end, Flynn was acquitted. Striding out, he lit a cigarette and smirked. "The ladies will still love this Robin Hood." Paul Newman later said, "I had never seen arrogance so naked." Many believe Flynn was shielded by studios and journalists eager to protect a profitable star. Rumors never stopped. Stories of days-long parties, underage guests, and cruel demands inside his Mulholland Drive mansion. By 1959, Flynn was dead at just 50, his coroner noting the body of a man in his 70s. The New York Post called it, "Robin Hood dead leaves behind a legacy of films and secrets." Yet Hollywood still raised him into legend, burying the darkness beneath silence. But Flynn wasn't alone. Another star, with an even holier image, hid a terror that scarred her children for life: Joan Crawford. In a 1979 interview, Newman warned, "Never believe that an Oscar can hide the darkness within a family." Joan Crawford is the proof America watched in awe as Crawford accepted her Oscar in 1946. But hours later, inside her mansion, she dragged her daughter Christina out of bed and slapped her to the marble floor for faltering while singing the national anthem. Christina later revealed her life in Mommy Dearest. Clothes hangers turned into whips, ashtrays into weapons. The cruelty was ritualistic. Crawford forced Christina to kneel for hours before a crucifix, screaming, "Thank God for having me as your mother." In public, she posed as Hollywood's model mother. In private, her children wore long sleeves to hide bruises. Even in death, her cruelty lingered. When her will was read in 1977, Christina and Christopher were cut off entirely. The Washington Post called it the coldest will in Hollywood history. Newman summed her up simply: a queen on screen, a tyrant at home. And the most terrifying thing, she punished her children even after death. If Crawford ruled with violence, the next figure Newman named spread fear through scandalous secrets and vice: Bing Crosby. When the door burst open, the nightmare began again. Bing Crosby carried a belt in his hand, and each lashing made his children wish they could vanish. On Larry King Live, his son Gary broke down in tears. "He never hugged me, never spoke a kind word. All I remember is the cold stare as he swung that belt." The trauma rippled through the family. Lindsay Crosby was hospitalized repeatedly, trembling whenever Christmas songs played. Dennis Crosby never escaped the torment. Before taking his own life in 1989, he left a chilling note: "I tried to forgive, to forget. But every Christmas, the nightmare returned. I'm too tired." A year later, Lindsay also ended his life with a gun. The Los Angeles Herald-Examiner printed the merciless headline, "Christ King's sons die in winter nights." Others confirmed the horror. A tour musician told the Los Angeles Times, "I heard shouting, the crack of a belt, then a child's sobs. We all heard it, but speaking up meant career suicide." Debate raged over Crosby's cruelty. Some blamed his own harsh childhood, but Newman dismissed that excuse. At a 1985 panel, he snapped, "Don't blame his past. He beat his kids because he enjoyed the power. On stage, he controlled a crowd. At home, he wanted the same control over his family." The most chilling part? Hollywood's silence. Everyone knew, but no one dared speak. Studios needed Crosby's golden image, the perfect father selling records and movies. So the cries were buried beneath White Christmas. Paul Newman then turned to another figure, this time a woman. With dagger-sharp eyes and a voice that hypnotized, she wielded seduction as a weapon and left ruin in her wake. That was Marlene Dietrich. In 1955, at a Beverly Hills party, the doors opened and Dietrich swept in, wearing a tuxedo, cigarette holder in hand. The room fell silent. A reporter recalled, "The temperature dropped. It felt like she was here to choose her prey." Dietrich wasn't just the star of the Blue Angel. She turned seduction into strategy. Men fell for her tenderness, women for her boldness, but those who entered her orbit often ended destroyed. Jean Gabin, the French cinema giant, spiraled into depression after she left. Writer Eric Maria Remarque watched his royalties vanish on her lavish shopping sprees. In secret Hollywood circles, her rumored affairs left scars too. Greta Garbo withdrew further into solitude. Screenwriter Mercedes de Acosta ended destitute. Actress Claudette Colbert was haunted by gossip after Dietrich cut her off. The Edith Piaf story was darker still. After her affair with Dietrich, Piaf collapsed into alcohol and pills. Friends recalled her sobbing backstage. It was a love that only existed on one side. Others suffered too, like the young actress who broke her $1 million contract to follow Dietrich, only to be abandoned. She drowned in debt and was later found hanging in her Santa Monica apartment. Her note read only 3 words: "I hate you." Even her daughter wasn't spared. Maria Riva wrote in her memoir that childhood meant being left backstage for hours while her mother drove off with new lovers. Why was Dietrich like this? Scholars point to her youth in Germany, learning early that seduction could open any door. For her, love wasn't love, it was control. Newman, who narrowly escaped her pull, summed it up in 1983. Marlene treated human emotion like playing cards, and she played better than anyone. But behind her, all you saw were losers. After speaking of that goddess manipulator, Newman lowered his voice again. This time he turned to a man once hailed as Hollywood's golden boy, a hero on screen, but off-screen, accused of terrifying harassment. That man was Mickey Rooney. Elizabeth Taylor herself broke down years later, confessing to Newman, "You don't understand. Mickey Rooney frightened me more than anyone." Paul Newman once said, "Hollywood has smiles that hide darkness." No one fit that description better than Mickey Rooney. To the world, he was America's innocent boy. But to Elizabeth Taylor, barely 14, he was a shadow that haunted her for life. Her diary entries revealed sleepless nights, thick sweaters in summer to block his stare, and a desperate wish to escape MGM's golden cage. The studio protected him, silencing whispers, while Taylor carried the scars forever. Rooney's personal life spiraled into chaos. 8 marriages, gambling debts, poverty. In the end, Hollywood didn't betray him. He was only tasting what he once sowed. But if Rooney's darkness left scars, Kirk Douglas's legacy was even more chilling. On screen, he was Spartacus, the ultimate hero. Off screen, rumors painted him as a predator. In 1954, Natalie Wood's sister claimed Douglas lured the 15-year-old to the Chateau Marmont. Hours later, Natalie returned shaken, her diary describing herself as filthy, like everything had been stolen. Hollywood buried the whispers, and decades later, when Natalie drowned under mysterious circumstances, questions resurfaced but never found answers. Still, Douglas was showered with medals and Oscars, as actresses who once feared him sat silently in the audience. Newman once said, "Spartacus may have been a hero, but Kirk Douglas was never a hero to the young girls he hunted." Yet cruelty in Hollywood wasn't limited to men. Bette Davis, the so-called crown jewel of cinema, was a terror on set. With razor-sharp words and a volcanic temper, she left co-stars bruised, humiliated, or in tears. On Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Davis shoved Joan Crawford so hard she was hospitalized. Crawford retaliated by hiding metal weights under her dress, nearly breaking Davis's spine. Even legends like Errol Flynn admitted her slaps on set were more humiliating than any real fight. Cruise whispered that when her heels echoed down the hall, everyone froze, bracing for the storm. Newman once remarked, "No one denies her genius, but I've never seen anyone spread so much fear on a set." And then came Wallace Beery. To the public, he was the lovable father from The Champ, but in Hollywood's underbelly, his name was forever tied to the mysterious death of Ted Healy, founder of the Three Stooges. Witnesses saw Beery in a brutal brawl with Healy at a nightclub in 1937. Hours later, Healy was dead, covered in bruises. Days after, MGM quietly shipped Beery to Europe. The LAPD closed the case as alcohol poisoning, but journalists called it one of Hollywood's most blatant cover-ups. A heart of gold on screen, a hammer behind closed doors. Wallace Beery's violence wasn't limited to bar fights. On MGM sets, he terrorized children. Mickey Rooney recalled being slapped so hard he collapsed while the crew froze in silence. Extras flinched at Beery's presence, knowing he'd toss them around like props. One child actor left with bruises, his family silenced by hush money. Even his wife, Gloria Swanson, later admitted he assaulted her, forcing her into divorce. Newman once said, "On screen, Beery played tender fathers. Off-screen, he spread terror with his fists that led to Gloria Swanson herself. The queen of silent films turned ego into a weapon. On Queen Kelly, her endless demands destroyed the production, leaving hundreds jobless. During the Great Depression, she flaunted crystal-studded gowns and gold-plated limousines while millions starved. Directors, crews, even audiences. She blamed them all when her star faded. In Sunset Boulevard, she played an aging diva lost in delusion, and audiences shuddered because she wasn't acting. But Hollywood's darkest secret was yet to come. Sal Mineo, the rising star of Rebel Without a Cause, was once hailed as the next James Dean. But in a time when being gay meant career death, he was cast out. Publicly, he loved actor Courtney Burr. Privately, he had a dangerous affair with Paul Newman. Witnesses saw Newman slip into his apartment late at night, and Mineo's diary carried a chilling line. "Newman is my greatest fear. If the truth comes out, I'll pay the price." On February 12, 1976, Mineo was stabbed outside his home. The case was rushed closed, the weapon vanished, witnesses contradicted themselves, and FBI files mysteriously disappeared. Days later, his diary was stolen, and a fund linked to Newman quietly shifted large sums into anonymous accounts. Newman appeared at the funeral, silent before vanishing. Then on 60 Minutes, he whispered, "Hollywood killed Sal, not with a knife, but with silence." To some, it sounded like grief. To others, a confession. Did Paul Newman expose Hollywood's demons, or was he one of them? Was Sal Mineo's death a random robbery, or a silent secret too dangerous to survive? What do you think? Do these legends deserve our praise, or should we finally strip away the golden masks? Drop your thoughts in the comments, share this video, and subscribe, because the next name we uncover might just be the very idol you still admire.